Dario again. Then I just want to be Dario again. Then life I love is making podcasts with my friends. Oh, I can't wait to get Dario again. Yeah, is it getting old? I don't know. Gotta tell you, I'm still liking it. But I just watched the 2022 movie Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. And I gotta tell you, I was pleasantly surprised. The movie is way better than I expected, so let's break it down. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Alright, so like I said, just watched Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. It's, what would you call it, an action fantasy comedy? I think that's a fair description. And like I said, overall, pretty good. I enjoyed it. I was expecting to maybe hate it, but I walked out pleasantly surprised. But before I get into the full review, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario SDW and at Super Dario World. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out. But all right, that's it. Let's get into it. So I'm gonna start spoiler-free. So spoiler-free review. I watched it on Amazon Prime. I think it's there. You can watch it for free. I mean, again, you pay for Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free there. So there you go. That's how I watched it. The movie's fun. If there's, let me see, I'm trying to find one word to describe it because I'm watching it and it's definitely unpredictable. So I remember watching the trailer for this movie and being like, it's gonna be really stupid because Dungeons and Dragons is not, I remember the previous one, it wasn't that great. And it's kind of hard to replicate. However, I think they did a pretty good job to make it feel like you're kind of watching a campaign, but still watching a world that's believable. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't feel like an isekai, right? It doesn't feel like it's strangers from our world who jumped into another world. It actually feels like characters who live in this world who are having a Dungeons and Dragons-like adventure. And like I said, if I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons that many times, I've done it once, and I've played video games that are similar to it. But I guess Original Sin, Divinity to Original Sin. I guess that kind of counts like it. But it's very unpredictable. The characters are wild cards, and the story never really. I mean, there's a main storyline, but it doesn't always go the way you expect it to. They end up doing really weird things in really weird places. So I think a good word to describe the movie is unpredictable, which is not bad. The acting overall is fine. I mean, there's a couple of scenes where you're like, Chris Pine kind of phones it in, but still, I don't blame that because it's a comedy and you don't want to be too serious in a comedy. Like there's scenes that are, a moment that's kind of heavy. But it's like, all right, it's still a comedy. You kind of want to take a lighthearted approach. So I think they handled that really well. What really impressed me, and I mean really impressed me, was the fight scenes. They're not the greatest scenes I've ever seen, but the characters in them felt believable. The choreography was cool. I'm not going to say it was great, but it was cool. It was fun to watch. There's a variety of different fights. Like there's a sword fight, there's multiples fights of many against one. There's magical fights, and there's a magical duel that I actually really enjoyed. I think it's one of the funnest magical duels I've seen since maybe the Sword and the Stone, because you actually get to see the magic that's happening. One of the things that really bugged me in, for example, Harry Potter, was that they're just moving the wand. Like, I move my wand and an attack goes, but you don't even know what the fuck they're doing. Here you actually get to visually see the attack that they're doing, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that I was pleasantly surprised because I have issues with magic. Magic sometimes is stupid, and it ruins things, but they handled it well, and they also made it funny and the way they used the magic. So overall, the movie is watchable. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst. I don't think it's as funny as Old Dads, which I did a review for 2 days ago, but I think I loaded the video yesterday. I don't know. But it's definitely watchable. I enjoyed it. I had a way better time watching it than I thought, because I didn't think they could do it, because Dungeons and Dragons is pretty much it's a user created experience. You're creating your own adventure. Sure, you have a dungeon master who guides the story, who guides the story. But the fun part is all the wild cards that your friends throw in. You know, I remember in my adventure, I snuck into a kitchen and I stole some chili pepper, and in a moment where there was an intense issue with a villain, I ended up throwing the chili powder in his eyes. So like, and we ran away. We kind of ruined that for the dungeon master, but still, it was really funny. So it's those moments that you're like, that's what makes it special, and it does feel kind of that way. There's characters who you're like, okay, this is an NPC, this is an NPC, this is an NPC. That's a non-player character, but the main character does travel that line between not from that world and our world really well. They again, kudos to Chris Pine for playing the character this way, and kudos for the writers for writing the character that way, where sometimes feels like he would be the player character, but he also feels like he's 100% a part of that world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how it felt like to me. So the effects are mostly good. There's one scene that I didn't particularly like, the special effects. You know, it's a scene with a running deer, but whatever. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and they could have done better, but it's not the worst thing. Hugh Grant was having fun in this movie. Like, if there's somebody who had fun making this movie, it was Hugh Grant. He was phenomenal. He was a delight to watch on screen. Like I said, all the characters are great. They didn't follow this trope of characters who don't like each other teaming together and blah blah blah. No, these are characters you could tell they like each other for the most part, and they just bust each other's balls because they like each other. So it's enjoyable. Like I said, it's fun to watch. The chemistry on screen was really good. The story was fine, but the writing was pretty good. It was pretty funny. So overall, I recommend it. So again, that's spoiler-free section. If we go into a little bit of spoilers, I don't really feel the need to actually go into spoilers, because there's nothing that I really want to rip on this movie for. Because again, it's a fantasy comedy. I'm very forgiving with comedies. I've said this a million times before. It's funny because it feels like many adventures mushed into one. So sometimes it feels like it's going a little fast, but not really. I can't really complain about the timing. The movie feels like, or the pace. I'm sorry, not timing. The pacing. The movie's pace is actually pretty okay. Not gonna knock any points for that, because again, it's a comedy. There's moments where I wish they could have dwelled into things a little bit more, but the way that they avoid that is in a comedic fashion. So again, I'm forgiving with comedies, and also the jokes land. So that's actually the most important thing when you're making a comedy and you're doing stuff that's ridiculous to get out of a particular situation. If it's funny, I don't care. I'm not gonna complain. In fact, I'll say it's an overall good thing. Clever writing. And they do this a lot. So a way that they move is that they do it through comedy, and that's fine. What else? The costumes are really cool. The soundtrack is really fun. And like I said, I don't really have much to rip about, and I don't feel like I need to get into spoiler arena, because, well, I mean, what am I going to break down? Like a particular scene or something? I mean, you can tell that they want to make this a bigger thing. It's a small part of a larger world. If the movie's successful, I'm assuming they want to do more, because they left it in a place where you could do more. Like, this was just the starting adventure, and it ends in a really good spot. I liked it, at least. It starts in a really good spot, because the way that they introduce the characters every single time is very clever. So, for example, Chris Pine's character and Michelle Rodriguez's character, they're immediately introduced as the talker and the brute, right? And it's believable, because, Michelle Rodriguez is kind of a badass, and her fight scenes are actually pretty good. They're believable. So again, probably my favorite part of the movie is the fighting scenes, which I did not see coming. I expected them to be silly and ridiculous, but the choreography was pretty good. And so the talker and the crazy plan maker and the muscle, basically. Then they introduced Justice Smith's character with the kind of a scoundrel-ish, but kind of let's just say kind of a loser, but capable at times, powerful at times. So again, it's a fun little introduction there. And then the girl from It, I don't know her name, the redhead. They introduce her as kind of a resistant, highly capable fighter, resistance idealist. So that's also cool. Again, overall, the cast is actually pretty clever. It was a fun balance for a party in a dungeon adventure. There was, of course, a dragon, and the dragon, again, I did not see the dragon coming, but I'm really glad that they did the way they did it. Was it ridiculous? Sure. But again, I didn't see it coming. It was a completely unpredictable film. There's a character in there, a Thayan, who I think his sequence is probably my favorite in the entire scene, because, you know, they jump from certain NPCs helping them. And the best part of the movie is Hugh Grant, definitely, in my humble opinion. Again, he was just a delight to watch. He was having a ton of fun on screen. He was just, you know, this was probably like his favorite paycheck in a really long time. He had a great time on screen, just chewing up the scenery. But the sequence that I liked the most, it felt, that's the one that you actually felt like Chris Pine was a real person, and he was the NPC. It was phenomenal. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers, but just, I believe it's a Thayan. I don't know, maybe I'm messing up the word. But that was a sequence that I really liked because it had a little bit of everything. It had enough comedy, it had enough lore, it had enough backstory, it had a crazy fight scene. So it had showed most characters being capable in their own way. So I highly enjoy that. And I think that's a good place to stop, because again, I said I was going to get into spoilers, but I didn't. Honestly, I don't think I spoiled anything. So there you go. That's a good place to stop. I recommend the movie. If you have nothing to do on a weekend, I would still watch Old Dads first and then this one. It's a fun little adventure. I'd say, you know, it's a fun little date movie. You know, why not? I think it had enough for men and women. It's a comedy, it's well made, and it's an adventure flick. So yeah, sure, why not? I recommend it. Let's say a solid 8. It's a solid 8. Depending on who you are, I could go lower, could go higher, but I'd say it's a solid 8 of a movie. So there you go. Like I said before, like this channel, like this video, subscribe to this channel, blah, blah. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But as all, any comments, questions, suggestions, you can find me at DarioSDW and at Super Dario World. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.